Hello, this is Photography Gamer, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm reviewing Bloodborne for the PS4. Bloodborne is an action role-playing game developed by From Software. The game is set in a gothic city called Yharnam. In Yharnam, the locals have been afflicted by a bloodborne disease. The game takes place on the night of the hunt, where beasts freely roam the streets. You play as your own unique hunter who has to search the city for the source of the plague. The game can be played solo and also has multiplayer play. So what is the game like to play? Well, first things first, you have to create your own hunter before you embark on your quest. The options are sufficient to create a unique style with a variety of starting classes available to choose from. In terms of controls, you can use light or heavy attacks, dodge roll to evade, or use ranged weapons such as a flintlock pistol. The one aspect of the combat in Bloodborne that makes it different from other games in this genre is the counter-attack system. When an enemy attacks, you lose health, but there is a small window of opportunity after that strike to retaliate. If this is done successfully, you regain some of the health you lost. It's a really interesting twist, and it promotes a more aggressive playstyle, as opposed to Dark Souls, where in order to heal, you need to use a spell or potion. Here you can just wade into battle and get some of that precious health back. For me, that made the progression feel a little bit easier here, but it's a cool system that really does encourage you to be brave rather than just run away. The enemy variety is pretty cool, with beasts, torch-wielding locals and freakish creatures attacking you at every turn. The AI, however, well, I wouldn't say it's awful, but it was pretty predictable, with enemies either running at you on sight or standing and shooting from range. Few offered any real variety in terms of their tactics, but the sheer volume of foes does make up for it. One area the game excels is in the available weapons. From cool looking guns to melee weapons that have dual uses, whether that be one or two-handed. Most weapons have a switch option letting you go from one to two-handed attacks in an instant. Okay, let's talk about the story. It's a dark, creepy and pseudo-religious tale of blood plagues, ghastly beasts and macabre rituals, all set in a bleak and dingy Victorian city. As you progress, you find out key information, secrets and facts, and these will change your impression of the narrative. But it's the characters that hold the narrative together. They're an odd bunch of misfits, from living dolls, mysterious nurses, fellow hunters and untrusting locals who mock you as you seek refuge in their homes.
I am a doll created by you humans. Would you ever think to love me?
Come close, dear. Don't worry, I've done this before.
I would also say it's a simpler story than I was expecting. Usually From Software, they tend to veer into the surreal a bit too much, making the narrative muddled, but not here. It's very well paced, well thought out, and was probably the most compelling story I've experienced in one of their games. And I actually cared what was going to happen. The game world is a dark Victorian nightmare with narrow streets, creepy forests, amazing architecture, and it's really dripping with that style. Everything takes place over the course of a night, the night of the hunt, but it's not in real time. Events need to be completed in order for time to move forward. In terms of style, think, Jack the Ripper era London, Bram Stoker's Dracula, Van Helsing, Lovecraft meets The Wicker Man. Exploration fills you with this sense of wonder, but also dread, because the enemies here are so brutal, and if you're not switched on, you'll die and have to repeat that whole process. You'll drop your blood echoes and you've got to repeat that process until you figure out their weakness. And you will, and that's the key point. I never felt like the boss fights here were rage quit level. They were well constructed, difficult enough but not impossible to get through. Now the game, it doesn't give you any map. Now usually this isn't a big problem, but I would say in the first 5 hours it was a little bit of an issue. It's super easy to walk past a door or an archway or a side street without knowing, then you'll have to explore for hours to find that little nook that you missed. Some form of paper map or scroll would have really been helpful, just at the start perhaps. The world, it evolves through that night. The enemies, they change position, they reappear in other locations, and it always keeps you on your toes as the night is progressing. Finally on gameplay, let's look at the Chalice dungeons. Now these are a very cool addition. Basically, once you have a chalice and the necessary resources, you can do a ritual at the hub. This will create a portal to a dungeon. These can be fixed or procedural. Basically, you go down, you find a lever to open the boss door, kill the boss, then you go down to the next level. And it's a nice break from the main narrative, because some people will get stuck or get disillusioned with a boss, so having this separate area to progress your character is a really welcome addition. Visually, the game is a very dark affair, but also one that has an immense amount of atmosphere. Being English, I loved the Victorian theme, the plague setting, and the cool outfits and weapons. It's very stylized, very dark, gothic, and it's a real delight. Performance-wise, collision detection, I would say, again, it's a bit weird, like your character can get stuck behind a brick or an invisible barrier, which is very irritating in combat. This also affects the AI allies as well, and they do have some big problems walking through doors and often get caught on the environment. In terms of sound, the music is wonderful, but perhaps a little bit more of it would have been nice. It's quite quiet most of the time, but generally the sound pretty good all in. Okay, what's good and what's bad? What's good? The counter-attack healing is a masterstroke and changes the whole experience in a positive way. The city is stunning, complex and fascinating to explore. The boss fights were perfectly balanced, weapons, clothing and character design was a real delight to behold. The NPCs are memorable, weird and at times very amusing. And the story was fantastic, not overly complex, well paced and something that you genuinely will be interested in exploring. What's bad? Collision detection can be frustrating in tight combat scenarios. A map would have been very useful in the early stages, and aside from a bit more music, there really isn't anything wrong with the game that I can pick up on. So what's the verdict? Bloodborne is a fantastic and focused affair with a good story, excellent combat, good progression, and it's a game that does so many things right. Not all games need a vast open world to be interesting to explore. Bloodborne is the perfect example of this. The way you progress through the twisting pathways of the city is a lesson in level design, and it's a real pleasure to explore. The boss fights were some of the most memorable and satisfying that I can remember. The NPCs were a brilliant bunch of weirdos, and the simple counter-attack healing system, it makes such a big difference. I'm surprised other games haven't copied it more. So overall, a wonderful game, a wonderful experience, challenging enough to test your skills, interesting enough to hold your attention, and innovative enough to stand out from the bloated genre crowd. Bloodborne is a great game. I can now see what all the fuss was about, and I would strongly recommend it if you haven't played it already. So my score for Bloodborne is 9.5 out of 10. Okay, that was the review. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. This is Photography Gamer signing off. Thank you.